Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Goodest cast. And on this episode, we got Andy Sapp, DriftMechaniks, Slide America, FD 2005. Andy Sapp is an absolute icon. He's a legend in drifting. He's probably one of your favorite drivers. I couldn't believe that we got to sit down with him in his garage and talk about the early days of drifting, what it took to make Slide America, which is pretty much the first U.S. drifting documentary. Andy's an incredible creative artist. He's a graphic designer. He shoots film photography. He's traveled with 2 bands now, full-time, shooting events, living on a bus. We talk about all of it. It was really cool to sit down with Andy in his garage, the same one that he pulled out of in Keep Drifting Fun in his E46. Getting to sit down with him for an afternoon was something I did not think I would be able to do when I started this podcast. So I hope you guys enjoy this one as much as I did. Andy Sapp, Goodest cast. Check it out. Glad you're here.
Glad you're here.
Yeah.
Thanks for making the trip out.
Dude, I talk about this all the time. I've told you this when we got here. Like, this is definitely like gray old bucket list podcast episode. I'm not trying to like fucking gas you up too much right off the bat, but I need to know like how all of this started, because you were so early on like so many things. Where did it all fucking begin, man?
We can get into that. Thank you. That's awfully sweet of you to say. I don't know. Where did it all start? I guess for me it was World Rally. I got super into WRC, like peak Tommy Mäkinen, Petter Solberg era.
Yeah.
And I remember just watching those races on, I guess it was Speed Vision back then. And the tarmac rallies were the ones that I was like just enamored with, like jaw on the floor, watching these cars fly through these like little tiny Italian streets, city streets, like completely sideways. I was just like enamored. And so then kind of when drifting started to trickle its way over here and I saw that, it was like, oh, well, this is what I love about this, kind of on steroids. So it was a pretty easy, I guess, transition interest-wise for me to just be like, oh, this rules. I'm in. Let's do this.
Yeah, I never really like put rally cars in the mix. Like I always thought like DTM, slam down, big wheels. Like the tarmac rally cars always look so cool because they're like scraping the floor and just like tearing up these like mountain roads and stuff.
Yeah.
What was the first like experience with drifting in the US? Like how did you come across it?
I feel like it was kind of between like my best buddy, like childhood best friend of mine. His name's Human Mazafari, not the Human that also drifts, but I think we kind of just sort of stumbled upon it from internet videos, it feels like. Real quick, it was just like, this is the coolest shit. It was, it's hard to put myself back there, I guess. But it was just like, hands down, the coolest.
Yeah. It was like the fucking most exciting shit ever and something new.
Yeah. Yeah. And it kind of became like a beauty of all like those early days, it being so new and like nobody knowing their ass from their elbow. It was like everyone was figuring it out as we went and everyone was along for the ride. And I know me personally, I just wanted anyone around me that was down for that ride to be around for that ride. Like, are you into drifting? Cool, I'm into drifting. We're friends. Let's do this. It was that easy to me.
What was the first car that you got to drift?
That black E46.
No way. So you just picked it up like, I don't even know if this thing will slide. Or...
I already had it. And but so I thought that I was like fully disabling the traction control. I didn't know that I wasn't. So I was like trying to drift it. and just failing miserably. And then the day that I learned, like, oh no, you have to hold the button to fully disable it. And then I think the little yellow exclamation point and the brake light turned on and it was fully off. And then I just spun out once, and this is going to sound super corny, but it's accurate. It was like that scene from The Fast and the Furious when he spins that Eclipse out and he's just sitting there and he's like, whoa. And it's like your whole life changes. Like that was that moment.
So that was your first like drift car, and you still have it today.
Still have it.
That's crazy.
It's still around.
What, like, do you remember what year that was when you were spinning out?
Yeah, it would have been like probably 02 into 03. And then kind of as drifting started to pick up speed, then it was just on. I figured out pretty quick, like, I was like, the challenge part of it was so fascinating to me. Like, spinning out every single time. Like, how am I not getting this?
Yeah.
Like, the videos online, it looks so easy. How am I not getting this? So I was just like kind of hell-bent on trying to figure it out. I was like, I want to unlock this. I want to unlock the code. And I was so naive. I didn't even know that my car had an open diff. I didn't know what a diff was, like.
Yeah.
So for the first few years, I was trying to like compete with an open diff. And like, I kind of got the hang of it. It wasn't always like for sure, I would get it, but I could kind of hang with an open diff.
That's wild.
And then when I got a diff, it was like, oh, no, this is...
that's why I've been struggling.
Got it.
What was the early drifting culture like here? And you were in Atlanta when you were figuring it out.
Yeah, it was just so youthful. It feels like it was fast friends, and everyone around here was so excited about it. Mm. It was like, it's almost like when you try and start a fire and you pour gasoline on it and you light it and it's like that poof. It wasn't even like it grew here. It just ignited here.
Yeah, it seems like a very like rich drifting culture. And
yeah. And a bunch of Formula D drivers came out of here. It was really a super special time, I feel like.
Yeah. What were were there events? Like, how did that all come to be? Was there someone kind of organizing stuff? How did that all like unveil?
Yeah,
unravel.
There were events. I remember DG Trials was a big one that was doing grassroots events. Those early days, I think it was kind of a bit of a dance to even convince people to like let us use their property for stuff. I remember one guy, we were going to try and get a drift event at Six Flags, and I think it was like pretty close to being sealed, like the deal sealed. And he took whoever the person was that his contact out. He was like, well, let me take you for a run in the parking lot so you can see what this is. And he took her around, and she was like, you absolutely will not be doing this here. It's like, It was such a scramble for like, where can we do this? Can we do this here? And Turner Field wound up being the epicenter for all of it.
Yeah, that's like in the city kind of. Yeah. Which is wild.
Yeah. Looking back on that is for sure wild.
Those kind of early events seem to be really iconic, and at least like I would say drifting, like even in the South in general, they brought like a lot of people in and gave them a place to learn. Yeah.
And everyone was so like psyched on it. It was like everyone was like sharing information and hopping in people's cars, and it was such a fertile environment, I think, for that growth, because everyone was just so excited about it that it was like, it wasn't even a question of you should, try this PSI, or you should do this, or you should do that, or you should initiate in third instead of winding out second,
Mm-hmm. How did things escalate to becoming one of the original cohort of FD drivers?
Me?
Yeah.
It's a fun story. So I credit like so much of this to just right place at the right time. But there were certainly factors that were involved. I attended the 2004 FD at Road Atlanta, the first one. And at that point I was like super into it and trying to figure out how to do it. And I think I had maybe like just kind of cracked the code for like, all right, I can get the car to do what I'm trying to get it to do now. And then we went to that FD event, and I remember standing on the fence as those cars would come through the little horseshoe there and just spitting tire and dirt in my face and smoke and just being like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, I was dating a girl at that time, and she, as they do, broke my heart.
It happens.
Which is fine.
To the best of us.
Yeah. But I think I was maybe a year and a half sober at that point, and I needed like a coping mechanism. I was like, well, I don't want to go back to that. I need something to focus my energy on, or I'm going to go insane here. And pro drifting kind of became it. I was like, I'm going to focus my energy here. And I really dove headfirst into it, not knowing what I was getting myself into. But I'm super grateful that all that happened the way that it did. I wouldn't take any of it back for the world.
And are you pulling up to FD in like pretty much a standard E46?
Yep.
Was it 330?
325.
Whoa.
Took as much of the interior out as I could. I mean, I was living in an apartment at that time with my buddy Michael, and got a roll cage put in to FD specs at that time. And I drove it to New Jersey.
No fucking way.
But we've got video footage somewhere of like sitting in traffic in Virginia somewhere, and like gridlock traffic, and there were cones in the road, and I started just like doing donuts around the code. I had like trunk full of tires. Some friends of mine were, driving a support truck behind me, but yeah, it was
low budget making it happen.
Yeah, and it's innocent. It just felt like a pretty innocent era of even being able to do it.
Yeah.
There was no feeder series. There was no.
You're just like, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, I'm going to do this. I think it was $125, $150 for a license. And then
wild.
It's like, you had to pay the entry fee. The rest is on you.
Yeah. What was that like rolling up to like your first professional drifting competition?
It was insane. I mean, I felt like simultaneously a fish out of water and a fish right at home, if that makes any sense. I think my whole thing with any of it is like, I just wanted to do it. I just wanted to be a part of it. I didn't care if I did well. I wasn't out there to win. I didn't expect to win. I just wanted to do it. So to show up to the first one was like a sense of accomplishment, like Dumb and Dumber, like, we're really doing it, Harry, And I didn't do great at that event, but it didn't matter.
Yeah,
because we were doing it.
Yeah. That's a tough track to do in a 325.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when we drove home too, somehow we wound up going north. And I remember looking over and being like, that's New York City. We're going the wrong way. This is pre-GPS.
Yeah.
This is like MapQuest days.
Some paper printed out.
Yeah,
It was like
100%.
telling you which way to go.
Paper printed out inside of an atlas. Someone told us to go this way, and we wound up driving, several hours in the wrong direction. It's fun.
How many more like rounds did you just like keep going? You're like, this is fun. I'm part of the circus. Like,
I did that whole first season from start to finish. That was kind of my goal. And I wound up top 32 in Atlanta, top 32 in Houston. But Atlanta was the one that was like, if I was going to do well, I would want to do well in front of the home crowd.
Yeah, home track.
But yeah, I mean, that car never had enough power.
No.
Never. Like, I think it took me 5 years before I could ever really link back down the hill.
Yeah, because you have to get it fucking perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
What a like massive undertaking to just be like, fuck it. You know?
Yeah. I really had no idea what I was getting myself into. And it was such just like a, I don't know, kind of a raucous era. Because even though money was starting to come in, like real teams were starting to form, it was still like kind of rock and roll, you know.
Yeah, you're driving your car to the track.
Yeah.
Did you drive to every round?
No. So eventually, a local shop here that I wound up partnering with for quite a while, they would let me use their open car trailer. So then I wound up towing. But I remember the first time I put the car on the trailer, I loaded it completely, all the weight on the tongue. And I drove over there, and he was like, "Are you trying to kill yourself? Like, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Nobody told me what to do." He's like, "No, pull the thing back, weight over the wheels." I'm like, I didn't know.
It's fun learning that stuff, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes for a fucking great story.
Yeah, it absolutely does.
You kept doing FD stuff.
Yeah, I wound up after 05, I didn't run the full season. I think I just did whatever events were close. And then, but I think like, I don't totally remember. It might be 07, 08. I think I maybe even just did Atlanta.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. That was the only one I really cared about. I will say, we were talking about it a little bit before we started, the Irwindale thing.
Yeah.
Like, I had a moment at Irwindale. I drove probably the worst I had ever driven that entire season, but I didn't care. I did not make the event, but I remember that night after the event was over, sun was setting, and I remember like kind of standing there on the fence, and like I just started crying because I did it. It was like such an overwhelming emotional sense of accomplishment that I don't think I've felt before or since. And when the news came out that Irwindale's going away, I thought of that exact moment. And I was like, oh, I hate that that's going away, because I know I'm not the only one to have a moment like that there. There's all these other people. I mean, that track's been around for, what, 25 years at least?
Yeah.
So I knew I wasn't the only one having that moment of like, oh, man, I don't want that place to go away.
Yeah. Like the pride of completing a season and all the dedication and like crazy struggle to make it work. And
and knowing that I'm not alone in that. I know, tons of other people felt the same thing.
Yeah, that's definitely a different perspective that I think a lot of people probably will never feel and haven't.
It bums me out, like, because when tracks like that go away, I instantly think of like the communities that are rooted in that place take the hit. It's not, I mean, I guess the fans take the hit too, but to me, it's more the communities. And it's not just drifting, it's all forms of motorsport, Yeah. It's like the people that love it the most are the ones that take the hardest hit.
Yeah.
And it sucks. It's unfair.
Yeah. Not everybody has the means to go travel 3 hours to drive or even spectate or whatever. Yeah. I know like the Atlanta like drifting community had kind of a rough time after the Turner events went away, and felt like there weren't like a lot of places to go drive.
Yep. Yeah, Atlanta took a pretty good hit losing that one. And that felt unfair too. I think more so because the way I understood that happening was like if a bill hits the mayor's desk and is not seen within X amount of days, it automatically gets pushed through. And so this bill, again, this is only the way that I have come to understand it. I might be totally wrong. That the bill hit his desk as he went on vacation. Like someone knew he was going on vacation.
Wow.
So they pushed it through then so that he wouldn't be there, and he never even saw the bill to ban drifting inside the city limits, and it just got pushed through. So our whole community took that hit.
Yeah, that's awful.
Yeah. And drifting, I mean, to me, has never been the same since, but it's a heck of a lot better now that we've got Lanier back, and it's kind of like the kids got their skate park back.
Yeah, that's such a good way to put it.
That's the vibe. The few times I've been able to get up there, that's what it feels like. It's like the skate park on a Friday night.
I got to ask about Slide America.
10-4. Fire away.
My friend Dylan brought that DVD to my house and we watched it. Some people will think this is lame, but like I never felt like Option Video and like Dory 10 were that relatable because it just felt so far away, and
sure.
I didn't know enough about it. But like the Techademics DVD, the Slide America DVD, like those were like people, I mean, two very different things, but like similar era. Like,
sure.
I think a lot of people watched that and were like, oh, this is like US drifting.
Well, thank you for saying that, because that certainly was one of the goals, was wanting to represent US, you know?
Yeah. What was like the mindset? Because it was such a crazy like endeavor, you know? Like, again, you same concept. You're like, I'm going to fucking go drive every round in my low powered car and say, fuck it. Like, was it just like, hey, like, you guys want to take on this fucking mission? And
yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's a certain beauty that comes with being just naive and young and not knowing any better. That being said, I would turn around and do the same thing right now without much of a fight, you know. But I grew up skating my whole life, and also, in addition, like skateboarded, and I got into rollerblading too. There was a video that came out. It's called The Hoax 2, Anarchy Across America. So angsty. And but that video, when it came out, was the coolest, because it was pro skaters in a Winnebago just going around the country to different cities and meeting up with like local pros, going out to the street spots. Does it sound familiar? Mm-hmm. Going out to the street spots and getting after it. And I thought that video was super cool as a kid. And so there's some pretty significant parallels in my life to that. Like, I watched that sport grow from nothing and turn into an X Games sport. And, you know, when I was in high school, I felt like I was probably on my way to being good enough to be pro, but I never made the leap. And so kind of when I saw drifting develop in the same way, that's another reason that I made that leap.
Like, I'm not missing this shot.
I'm not missing this time. And so because of that, I was always thinking about the parallels between the two sports. And so I got to thinking about like wanting, because like you said, the Techademics, you know, even the Bad as Hell, like that whole era it was DVD heavy.
Yeah.
It was still kind of I don't want to say pre-internet, but pre-YouTube.
Yeah, definitely. There wasn't any like long form edits. It was little clips or whatever people stealing and put on the internet.
Yeah. So I just drew a parallel between that video, and I was like, man, it would be awesome to do something like that. And I was like, well, it doesn't make sense. It's kind of physically impossible to get pros together to travel, but maybe we just stripped that element out of it and just travel around to each city and meet up with the locals and interview them. Because at that time too, and I was super fascinated with other people's stories about how did you fall in love with this crazy thing, you know? So that was kind of the beginning of that. And then I was friends with a gentleman named Joey Redman, and we kind of partnered on that. And he secured the funding to make it happen, which I'm thankful for.
Did you go like pitch it to some entertainment company or like?
On the back end, we tried to get distribution. I don't know, it gets a little murky, but yeah, I'll just leave it there.
Yeah.
I'm super grateful that we got to do it, because at that time it felt like a dream to even do it. And then we went out and did it. And it's been a long time since I've watched it. I know I've grown as a filmmaker since then. And I think it would be pretty painful to go back and watch. But there is certainly something to be said about just being present for that time and being able to capture it. So
yeah, it was just so like, I don't know, renegade, like just fucking van and cameras and go catch all these like street clips. And it was a very, very like special thing. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It was special. And I do hold it near and dear to my heart. Jason Small was the other gentleman. It was the three of us in that van. And the fact that we didn't want to kill each other by the time it was done is a miracle, because three dudes living in a van is never ideal.
Did the van make it like
We beat the crap out of that van. That was also the same. It was like kind of peak era of like, oh, we've got the insurance on it and we've rented it with an American Express. It was double insured. So like, I just beat the crap out of it. I think the Drift Alliance boys used to do some of the same stuff, but
I can imagine
it was that era, but it was fun. And, years later, after getting to know Will, he kind of came to me and said that he wanted to kind of try and do a follow-up, which wound up being Keep Drifting Fun.
Yeah, which was amazing.
Yeah. And he was super sweet, because he was like asking my permission, and I was like, no, like, yes, please. Like, you're the dude. If anyone is the dude to do it and to do it right, it's you. Please do this.
Yeah, I watched Keep Drifting Fun and I was like, oh shit, he just like did his own Slide America.
Yeah.
Which was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
What was there any like crazy run-ins with like cops, or did you like have any just fucking smooth sailing?
Yeah, I think it was pretty smooth. If I remember correctly, I was unemployed during that time, so I was free to just go where the wind took me. And so that's why in that video, I'm in a couple different cities, because as Will and Josh went north, I was just like, all right, I'm going too. Threw the car on the trailer and just went.
Sweet. What was like the most surprising community, and like how did you, I guess I'll ask that question, but I'm really curious like how you decided to go to each of the locations.
For Slide America?
Mm-hmm.
That's a fantastic question. I mean, I know there were standouts, like some of the major cities, California obviously was easy, but at that time everything was so heavily forum based that it was almost, I think MySpace was probably kicking pretty heavy. I feel like Joey maybe did some questionnaires like on MySpace, like, where should we go? Should we, and that coupled with just knowing certain communities existed, like, oh, we got to go here, we got to go there.
Yeah, it feels like you picked you picked all the main spots, like where there was a lot of activity and the communities were strong. And
yeah. And it was so cool, man. Like, just the way that everyone along the way opened their homes to us and just like let us crash at their place. It was like a eye-opening experience for me, just how nice people in drifting. It was kind of maybe one of the, maybe it's not the first, but it just falls in line with how amazing people in this sport are.
Yeah. It's nice when you can find like common ground with somebody and they just completely open up. I've found that's still the case today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wild. All of it's wild. I'm thankful for all of it.
Hey everybody. I'm here to tell you about my friends over at CoreWorks. It's a great shop. They sponsor a lot of top tier drivers. They build some really cool cars, both for SEMA and drifting. If you're looking for variety and community, head on over to CoreWorks. Check them out in person if you can. They're in Georgia. And honestly, if you can't, check them out at coreworks.com and use code Goodest, GOODESTBOY on checkout to save 15% off on their engine bay dress-up parts, their hydro handles, all the cool CoreWorks parts. They're good people. I loved having some of them on the podcast and going there in person. And I hope you guys check them out. Tell them I sent you. Do you have a gas problem? Are you not getting enough fuel? Well, Fuel Lab, dude. I've been telling you nonstop. You need to get over Fuel Lab. You need to spend some money and make sure that your fuel system is decked out. Because if you want horsepower, Fuel Lab. If you want your car to run lean, not Fuel Lab. Get it in your car. Quit playing around with that middle of the mall fuel system stuff. Get the good stuff. Get what the pros use. Fuel Lab is the jam. Designed in America by good people. Head on over to Fuel Lab. Use code Goodest on their website for 15% off. Get yourself this sick surge tank quick service drop in, or just get yourself a regular old fuel pump, because they work. And they work good and they pump hard. Get pumped up. Get pumped by Fuel Lab. I don't know a ton about drift mechanics and like, because I mean, there were so few drift teams back then. Like, what was the inspiration to like have a drift team?
Great question. I have no idea. It just felt like the thing to do. And it was, again, forums were kind of the key form of communication back then. So I just felt so enthusiastic about this that I just wanted to share it, if that makes any sense. And so it was kind of more a forum than it was a team. But then it also kind of just became a team. Yeah, I don't know.
Stuff just happening.
Yeah, everything was happening pretty fast, it feels like.
Who were some of the main characters in this part of the world? Like
in Atlanta,
yeah,
drifting. Oh man, there's so many. Eugene Chow comes to mind pretty quick. Dan Willey over at Battleground was another one. Sin and Sandy at Drift 411. Eric Jacobs was doing DG trials at that time. Yeah, tons. Too many to name for sure.
Yeah. You were telling me about the skate decks that you have in your living room, which were for like kind of a invitational event. Mm-hmm. At what point, like, did you kind of get into being part of organizing and?
Well, I think all of that credit goes to Eugene and to Tyler, Clayton. I think they were the ones that were really putting those together. We were just throwing the name on it. But those private events kind of came about after All-Star Bash. And like we couldn't get to All-Star Bash at that time. So we kind of wanted to do something. I don't want to say it was our answer to it, but kind of, I guess. So yeah, I say we, Eugene and Tyler rented out Nashville Super Speedway.
Which is a pretty big, like...
Yeah, it's a NASCAR track.
Yeah.
It's a NASCAR track. I mean, the fact that we were even able to do that is still mind-blowing to me. We've rented Atlanta Motor Speedway a couple times too. And now anytime I'm down there, I just look around like, what? They let us do what? Like, it makes no sense. But those events were super fun in Nashville because we made it so silly. It was invite only, and you had to dress up formally, formal attire. And it could be, granted, it could be like Goodwill formal. You know what I mean? Like, everything's going to get thrashed. So it was just over the top and silly. And that was ultimately how I met Will Rogie, because I knew at that time I could either drive at an event or I could shoot video at an event. I couldn't do both because both suffer. So I knew I really wanted to drive. So Will was doing these Rice Boy TV edits. And I was like, oh, well, this is the guy. His videos rule. And so I got in touch with him and we just talked on the phone. And I was like, hey, if we get you a plane ticket and a hotel room, would you come out and hang and shoot? And he was like, hell yeah. And I remember we talked on the phone for hours. And I was like, I felt like I had been talking to my best friend that I had known my entire life, even though it was the first time I'd ever talked to him. And I like got off the phone feeling so good about all of it. Like, yeah, this all feels right.
Yeah. Will's a great dude.
Yeah. He's the best.
Yeah. And so that friendship was born
through that.
Yeah. All through drifting.
All through drifting. It's the friendships, and all my like Atlanta buddies have heard me harp on this until I'm blue in the face, and I'm not going to stop. Just how lucky we all are that the friendships were and are what they are. Like, even that doesn't make any sense. You know, it's like we've all gotten older. We've been doing this longer than I would like to admit. A lot of us have gotten older. Life gets in the way. You know, we don't all necessarily get to drive as much as we want to, but the friendships are all still there. It's like you take drifting out of it and the bonds are still there. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah. You spend that much time at the track dedicated to some silly thing. Yeah. And that's hard to replace.
Yeah. And I really think that there's something about whatever that bond was that was formed at the beginning when we were all just like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and super excited. We all shared in that growth of whatever this crazy thing is. I think there's something to be said for that kind of being a glue that's kind of stuck us together.
Yeah, just doing something for the love of it.
Yeah.
Finding something special and unique, and a bunch of other people who are willing to dedicate themselves to it fully.
Yeah.
Feels pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all of it is lightning in a bottle. And that's the part that my friends have heard me say until I'm blue in the face. It's all lightning in a fucking bottle. And it's never lost on me for a day that we got to experience drifting the way we did when we did. It's unreal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, drifting.
Speaking of Will and Keep Drifting Fun, I didn't know who you were until Keep Drifting Fun. I had seen Slide America, but I was like a teenager. And then I watched that clip of you rolling the E46 out of the garage.
This garage.
Yeah, sick. It's fucking cool. And I was like, I had like the crazy lights on. I'm just like, oh shit, what the fuck? You could drift those? It's like, who is this guy? Like long hair, fucking, oh, that's a fucking character right there. And just that like highway manji, like fucking don't give a fuck attitude. I was like, I want to hang out with that guy. He seems fucking cool as shit. I think like a lot of people saw that, and that definitely kind of opened up, maybe in like the early rounds of FD, like not seeing BMWs as much, and
which is mind-blowing to me. But I don't know, they're the ultimate driving machine for a reason.
Yeah, they work so well. Yeah, you were onto something early.
And they were onto it. I was just along for the ride.
Yeah. That clip lives rent free in my head for sure. How did that go down? Was Will like, hey man?
I don't totally remember. I just remember I was never really afraid to do that because there was a long time where I thought like street drifting and street racing was the coolest thing ever. And there was a while where I would go out on the highways at night, usually in the rain, and just as long as no one was around me, I would just go. And so I don't remember the specifics on how that wound up happening for Keep Drifting Fun, but it definitely stemmed from those early days.
Yeah.
Of just going out. I don't know why we did it in the middle of the day. It's fun.
Yeah. I thought that was the most memorable part of the whole Keep Drifting Fun video for me. I was like, who the fuck is this guy? Yeah. I know like recently you've been traveling as like a full-time creative photographer for music acts, and that's really fucking cool. But on the other hand, like you have way less free time and it's a lot harder to...
I have no free time. It's not even way less. The fact that we're sitting here is already a miracle. I've been home 9 days over the past 3 months.
Wow.
3 times. And 2 of those times I think were for 36 hours. So we've been running and gunning.
How does that affect your, like, sitting in this garage, like, people who can't see it, there's like literally an insane amount of like early drifting memorabilia and like posters and literally the fucking cards that I found at Virgin Superstore that got me to go to my first FD round are like stuck to the wall here. Like I know drifting means a lot to you. Like, yeah. Is there a way to like to surround yourself with cars and all this stuff and keep yourself from going crazy and not wanting to be out there? Like,
it feels kind of mostly almost out of my hands because I have to go where the bus goes.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm not really in control of any of it. And I don't get to drift nearly as much as I would like to. I don't get to ride dirt bikes as much as I would like to. Like there's a lot that I don't get to do, but that's kind of the trade-off for the career part, which I love what I do, and I can't even put it into words how much I love what I do. So to a certain extent, it's worth it to not be able to be surrounded by cars and not go insane.
Yeah.
But I do wish that I could drive more.
Yeah.
I mean, I think like we were saying earlier, like people don't even know that my car is still around until they see it somewhere and they're like, oh, that's still there? Like, yeah, it's still there. I still got it. It still runs.
Yeah.
She'll still do the thing. Like, I just got to be home to do it.
Yeah.
And I work pretty much every single weekend, almost always. And that's when drifting happens, is on weekends. So unless someone wants to have a Wednesday middle of the day while I'm home for 36 hours drift event, it's going to have to wait.
Yeah. What, you made the transition to this career, and like, obviously you've done incredible media and direction and all this stuff before. Like, was it an easy transition from stuff you learned from the drifting world into live events and traveling with a band? And
yeah. And I also think we were pretty, I mentioned this earlier, we were pretty transient as a family growing up because my dad's job, we moved around a ton. So I think that's another part of it too, feeling comfortable being in a new city every morning. But yeah, the stuff that I, shooting wise was doing in drifting definitely set me up for success doing what I'm doing now.
how did that even come to be? Like,
well, that's a good story. So my second job out of college was working for a gentleman here in Atlanta named Britt Turner, who unfortunately passed away in March. But I was doing design work for him. I quit working for him in 2006 to shoot Slide America. And he was like, yeah, man, go. Do the thing. But we just always kept in touch. And fast forward to like maybe, I guess it would have been 2012. I was working at an animation, like an agency, full-time doing After Effects stuff for commercials. And had a job come in where the guy brought it from another agency, Clint Keener, who's old Drift Mechanic buddy. And he brought it to our agency and said, I want to work with Andy. We want to work with Andy. And my boss, who owned the company, was like, okay. But ultimately, I don't think he was too happy about that. So this was a huge job for the Marines. It was very difficult. I wound up with no company resources. I was working 120-hour weeks, sleeping in 20-minute intervals in a sleeping bag next to my desk to get this job done, because it turned into a little bit of a pissing match, I feel like. But I was like, I'm going to get it done. So got it done, had my employee review a handful of days later, and I was like, all right, cool. This is where I get to ask for some more money. I promise this is all going to come back and make sense. Went into my employee review, and they're like, everything's great. We're so thankful to have you. You know, their owners are shaking my hand, and I'm thinking, like, we haven't talked about money yet. And I hate talking about money. But the meeting was coming to a close, and I was like, so is this the part where we talk about a pay raise? And they said, oh, no, that's the conversation we'll have at the end of the year. And in the back of my head, I thought, I'm not going to be here at the end of the year. Y'all just lost your MVP, you know? And so my buddy Britt was always the kind of dude who would just hit you up out of the blue. Hey, man, what's been up? We ain't talked in a while. What's going on? Britt just happened to call me that night. Said, hey, man, what's been up? I'm like, dude, I'm working more than a human being should work.
Yeah.
And I'm questioning all of the decisions in my life that have led me here. He was like, well, when you're ready to come over to the dark side, give me a call. So I went over to his house. We sat on the tailgate of his C10. And he was like, I need you. He's like, I need someone that can design, that can shoot photo, video, ain't afraid to get on a tour bus. You're my dude. Let's do it. And I was like, all right, hell yeah. This was a Thursday. They were going on a weekend tour run. He's like, I'll be back on Monday. Call me on Monday with a number, and we'll go from there. And I was like, all right, cool. Called him up on Monday, and he said, hey, I need you to call this guy. His name's Cole. He works with Zach Brown's production company, and they need you. And I was like, well, that's cool, but you need me too, and you're my dude, and I would much rather come work with you. And he was like, I'm going to be honest with you. They can pay you more than I can pay you. Just go talk to them. If it works out, cool. If not, you come work with me. And I was like, all right. So I went and talked. And I wound up working for Zach for 10 years. And then when COVID hit, Zach let his entire touring crew go. And 15 minutes after I found out, my phone rang. And it was Britt Turner.
No way.
And he said, hey, man, you good? And I was like, actually, no, I'm not. I think I just lost my job. And he was like, I got a ton of shit to do if you're in. And I was like, fuck yeah, I'm in. And so I've been working with Blackberry Smoke ever since. And I blossomed as an artist in this arena on the road with Zach. And it just felt so bittersweet to get to come back home and do it all for Britt and the boys. So that's who I'm out with now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like getting to tour, see the world, fucking do art, make cool shit. Like, that's kind of the dream for a lot of people.
Yeah. It's a dream for me. I mean, it makes no sense that it's a job. I'm so thankful that it's a job. And I'm thankful that I feel like my creativity gets to help push other people. It's less about me. It's not about me at all. You know, I want these guys to look like rock stars so that people look at them and be like, dang, they look like rock stars. We got to go see them.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember like a shot that you posted right before you got rid of Instagram. I don't know how long ago it was, but you posted this shot. You're like riding on the back of like a cart or fucking golf cart or like a truck tailgate down, and you're like coming through some, I don't know if it was like a venue or like a rodeo or something. There was like fireworks going off and stuff. Yeah. I was like, that's one of the coolest shots I've ever seen in my life.
Yep. That was a Houston rodeo.
Yeah. So
that's pretty wild. They have a stage that rotates. It's probably 270 degrees and then it stops and then it goes back. So the band is continually rotating around it's pretty wild.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet you get to be in some pretty cool places, meet some cool people.
For sure. And it's insane to me that the camera is basically the passport for it. I mean, I understand that there's a part of it is like demeanor and, you know, the hang has to be good too, right? The job part of it is only a piece of it, but yeah, it's pretty wild. None of it makes any sense. And I owe it all to Britt Turner.
Yeah, and I think probably doing stuff like Slide America and hanging out with people all across the states and being in a van and knowing how to, you know, move in those types of situations and personalities and stuff. Like, it's all that, like, I don't know. That's something that I always feel like I owe to drifting, is it's taught me so many things that's made me exist better in like society.
Accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
So I just did a podcast with Greg from Coro.
Yes.
And it's fucking hilarious.
Of course it is.
Yeah. And through that podcast, I learned that you were roommates with Tyler.
I wasn't roommates with him, but we went to college together.
Greg lied to me.
You know what? I'll take roommates.
Yeah.
I feel close enough to him that we could have lived together. No, we went to college together. We were like our first friends at art school. We went to the Atlanta College of Art. And yeah, fast friends. He and I. Yeah, he had an EG6, black EG6 hatch.
Sick.
5-speed that he totaled the heck out of. I have a picture of it somewhere. It's mangled. It took him a little while to get him into a proper drift car.
Oh, you converted him.
I wouldn't say, I'm not going to take credit for that. I will say we collectively as a community, it took us a while. Because he was super into Subarus. He like had the Honda phase like through college and maybe like right out of it. And then he got into Subarus. And so he would try and drift his Subarus.
Which is tough depending on the terrain.
Yeah. We would even go out in like ice storms. It used to like ice storm here once a year. And then we would all go out and act like kids on a snow day. Sliding our cars around. He had like a white Impreza, like 22B body style. And we'd go out and try and drift that like in the ice. And I like be sliding it like real close to curbs. I'm like, this is making me nervous. This car is so nice. He'd done like crazy motor swap on it. I don't remember what it was, but so it took him a little while to get him into a proper drift car. And then from that point it was on. But even prior to this, I told this story at his funeral. I was privileged enough to get to accompany him to his first Nopi Nationals Motorsports Super Show at Atlanta Motor Speedway. His whole world changed that day. He didn't know that there was like an aftermarket of parts. He thought that if you modified your car, you took it to a dealership and they did it for you. And so when we went to Nopi and we're walking around like the vendor midway, it was fireworks. And oddly enough, I saw similar fireworks for him. I was sitting next to him in class when his future wife would walk through the door. And I saw the same fireworks when she walked through the door. As I saw at Atlanta Motor Speedway that day when he realized that there was an aftermarket of parts that you could pick and choose and build something that represented who you were. It was game over.
Yeah. What was his first build? Do you remember?
His first build, I feel like was his first crazy build was his 240. I mean, he had built cars before then, but that was the one, to me anyway, where it was like, oh, he found his canvas. It's like everything clicked as far as style, and he would relentlessly be hunting for parts that no one else could find. He was like the master at it.
Yeah, and that was like the early days of that stuff. Like, there were not many resources, and
no, I think Yahoo Auctions Japan, I don't even know how he was doing it half the time, because I'm like, this isn't in English. How? I don't know.
Yeah, what did he mean to the community in Atlanta?
A lot. And he really grew into that role and built that shop, and the people that he surrounded himself with over there. I mean, it was really special. It's still special. And you've been over there to the shop. So like,
it's incredible.
When you just stand in that shop and look around, next time you're over there, now that I've said this, think about this. If you just look around, that shop is Tyler's enthusiasm for cars just spilled over. It's like the pot was left on boil and just let go. And it's just all over that place. And that's one of the things that I think is so beautiful about that shop and about all those dudes over there is it's all a result of Tyler's unbridled enthusiasm for all of it. And there's a reason that, like I was saying with the early drift days, like just being so enthusiastic about it. Like, I love this. Do you love this? All right, we love this. Yeah. Tyler was like that, and that's resulted in something really special over there.
Yeah, it feels like a true like community hub.
Yeah.
And I wish more places had something like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's truly like a vision executed and continues to give back.
Yeah.
That's pretty special.
Yeah. And I give credit to those guys for keeping it alive. And I love them for it. I appreciate them. And for Lauren, his wife Lauren, for wanting to keep that place there. I feel like he's there. Like, when I'm in there, I'm always just kind of waiting for him to pop around the corner, be like, "What's up, Mr. Andy?" Yeah. It's super cool. I miss him. I miss him a lot. It's been a rough year in this department.
Yeah. It seems like it was a huge loss for the community.
Yeah.
I didn't know him personally, but a lot of people that I respect seems like they had nothing but the best to say, and that says a lot.
Yeah, I wish you could have met him. He was something special. He is something special still. Even his last days, man, he had that high ace van, and I remember like he could barely get around. He had like a walker and all these machines, and the nurses it was like an ordeal. But he wanted to get out in the garage and show me his new van. And so it's rallying everybody to get him out in the garage, and he's, get him up into the passenger seat of the car, and he's just sitting there, and he's having me and my friend David Jones like, go in the cabinet and get the plates out. And he's having us put plates on his car and take pictures of him and show it to him. And then he'd be like, no, get that other one. I want to see the other one. He's still building cars. Like, he never broke stride, which I think is just so beautiful that even in the face of all that, he just did the same thing he always did. He just built cars. It's so cool. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, he fucking did his thing.
Yeah, I miss him. Yeah, it got heavy.
Yeah.
Trying to think if there's any other funny Tyler stories. There was one time that he initiated third gear and Turner coming up the hill and just wrapped his car around a telephone pole.
Shit.
I mean, he turned the thing into the letter U.
He was good though.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I remember he wouldn't go to the hospital, and I remember being mad at him. There's a picture, if you go to the old DriftMechaniks website, there's a picture of him sitting on top of that car trying to make like a little D and an M with his hands right after that accident that I put up the day that he passed. That forum had fallen by the wayside, as most forums had. And the day that he passed, I went into full like, oh, I'm getting this thing back online right now. Like, and put the word out to all the homies. Like, hey, let's get back on here. Start sharing Tyler stories, share Tyler pictures, because he would love to see this place lit back up again.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, it was neat.
And that's something special, and it's gonna like live somewhere. It's not just gonna disappear into the fucking algorithm. And
no, as long as I'm alive, it ain't going nowhere.
Did you put up the forum?
Mm-hmm.
So you've always just been like a fucking do everything kind of guy.
I guess so. Or maybe I'm just too stubborn to not think about it. I don't know.
I had no idea you created a forum.
Well, it's not hard to create a forum.
Yeah. When you're like maintaining something.
Yeah.
You've had a lot of projects. Yeah. You've given back a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to. I wish I could give more. I mean, I feel like I owe so much to drifting because it changed my life, which is, about as cliche as it gets. But cliche stuff most of the time I've found is also pretty dang true.
I can relate.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people can.
Yeah.
It's very special to like find your thing in this world. And
for whatever reason, and maybe it's kind of a similar thing with skateboarding or BMX or extreme sports, there's something about drifting that attracts a certain minded individual, that there's like just common ground for connection through it.
Yeah.
It's almost like a no-brainer.
Yeah. It's nice to remove that one layer of could we get along? You have to be a little crazy to want to even try and learn.
Yeah. But the fact that you want to try and learn, like the fact that if you're showing up wanting to try and learn, like you're already ahead of the game.
Yeah.
I think, right?
Yeah. You're willing to risk your car that you drive to work.
Yeah. Your bank account.
Yeah.
All personal relationships.
Yeah.
All sorts of stuff.
Yeah. All for a little adrenaline.
Yeah. I had a couple relationships where the line was, "You're still out there working on that car?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know if this is going to work out."
Dude, your garage is so fucking cool.
Thank you. I'm very settled into it, and I don't ever want to move.
Yeah.
Except I would like more space.
Yeah. I can imagine.
So normally the E46 is parked in here, and then it's a puzzle piece to try and get all the motorcycles shimmied in. But
yeah, I've noticed like this is, maybe you can share some insight on this one, but I've noticed like this overlap between drifting and like Harleys as like becoming, the Venn diagram is growing. I don't fully understand it, but I think I do. What are the commonalities that like create that?
I think there's the self-starter piece is probably a pretty big one. Having to rely on yourself, to me, it feels like the biggest piece. Obviously, I think most drifters are going to be tinkerers, and if it's an old bike, you're going to have to do some tinkering.
Yeah. I think it's also, could be wrong, but it also seems kind of like another outlet for vehicle-based art.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And I've had conversations with Will about this a lot, that the amount of work and effort it takes to even get your drift car on a track, just to get it ready, to get it on the trailer, to get your tires mounted, to get to the track, to get your car unloaded, just all that effort. That's a lot. Yeah. It takes a lot. for then to get like a 40-second run. Maybe you get 8 of those in a day and then put it back on the trailer and reverse the whole process. Like, it's an insane amount of work for a little bit of enjoyment, but the enjoyment is so great that it's worth it. Whereas with motorcycles, it's like the barrier to entry is a lot smaller.
Yeah.
For the most part, as long as my bike is running, I can just throw a leg over the thing, back it out of the garage, and go. And the enjoyment is very similar to me in riding bikes and drifting. Although with drifting, I would say there's a little bit more of a spike in the adrenaline.
Yeah. I think it's cool, though. I think that's cool that, like, people in drifting can have, like, these different, find these other outlets that are, like, a completely different, like, origin, and, like, it's a different aesthetic and lifestyle and, like, this whole thing, but it's like the root of it is very similar.
Yeah.
And I think, like, people that, like, have that same kind of energy, like, I feel like drifting is kind of, at least in the early days, was kind of more of like an outlaw feel, like, we're gonna go street drifting, like, you know, let's see what fucking happens, just like going and street skating and trying not to get fucking thrown out of spots, and don't give a fuck attitude mixed with style and adrenaline chasing. It's like all there. Yeah.
I remember we used to, when we would go street drifting, we would like drop spare tires off at certain locations, because we would have like spots that we would hit throughout the night. And I always had like I called it a hit it and quit it rule, because you don't stay for, maybe I'm saying too much for these whippersnappers. Don't street drift, kids.
Yeah.
But back in my day, because we would know how long our tires were going to last. So it's like, all right, when we hit this spot, you know, then we'll have tires there.
Yeah. There were like no events back then.
Yeah.
It was different. You had like, there was maybe like one a month, and you're like, well, this is heroin. I can't wait that long, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. I think today there's a drift event pretty much every weekend in every city, which is, did you ever like fathom drifting would have gotten as big as it has today?
Yes. And I'm surprised that it's not bigger.
That's real.
I'm surprised that it's not bigger than NASCAR, if I'm being honest, because it's everything, you know. I feel like if they could convert NASCAR's audience to drifting's audience, there's no reason it shouldn't be the biggest thing on the planet. It checks all the boxes.
I think so.
To me. Granted, I'm a little biased. But I also love NASCAR too, so
I think they both have their own, I don't know, yeah, like NASCAR kind of just has like legacy and like generational fans, and like I think we're just about to break into that where it's like, you know, I grew up watching FD, like now my kids watching it with me and stuff, like we're getting there. And then it, you know, once you get into that like multi-generational, like I don't think it's going anywhere after that.
Yeah, I don't think it's going anywhere ever. I hope not.
Me too. Fuck out.
Or else it's going to be back to outlaw drifting.
Yeah, they're making that harder and harder.
Yeah, that's a scary prospect. As like nostalgic as I feel for like those early street drifting days, like I would never in a million years go do that now. Yeah. Like all the sideshow stuff is, at least in Georgia, has made the penalties for that wild.
Yeah.
So it's like, why risk it? Just go to an event.
Yeah. The nostalgia is pretty cool though.
Yeah. I'm a pretty nostalgic dude.
I could see that. You still have your car from 20 years ago. That's like unheard of.
Yeah. And it really hasn't changed. I put a Koru Works steering wheel in it when Tyler passed. I think that's the only thing that's changed on it, you know, since, really. I took all the stickers off, and even that steering wheel, that was like one piece that I was like, it was a no-brainer. I was like, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course I want to think of Tyler every time I flick this wheel. How much for those? Give me 2.
Let me get one for the wall.
Yeah. Put one in my truck.
What's the future of drifting look like to you? I feel like you've had really good foresight here.
I'm not the one to answer that. because I feel pretty disconnected from it.
I feel like that's a good place to be, though. When you're in it, it's really hard to think of the future.
See the forest through the trees.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess in all fairness, I feel pretty disconnected from everything. I don't know.
What's the future of drifting look like for you?
I'm just keep doing the same, have fun with my friends whenever I can, which hopefully we won't be touring as much next year. So I'll have some time to do that. But
yeah, I would love to see that.
Yeah, that's the goal. The pro stuff was fun and I wouldn't trade it for the world, but it wound up feeling to me kind of like the kid that skates and was like, oh man, I want to go compete in the X Games. And then he gets to the X Games and he's like, I just want to skate with my friends because skating with your friends is rad.
Yeah. I think that's like pretty common across the board.
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of people who go that route realize that this was never meant to fully be that, and that having that exist is really important. But if you lose sight of what makes it fun and what makes it what it is, it's not the same thing anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where Keep Drifting Fun came from.
Yeah. I love that name.
I made a video when I retired from professional drifting. And I was like, I'm hanging it up. I just want to have fun with my friends. In the end of the video, I felt like a little animosity towards the automotive industry a little bit when I made that video, because the last line of the credits was keep drifting fun or else. I think I said something like drift with your heart, not with your pocketbook. Because at that time, like, again, money was in the sport and friendships were falling apart because of money. People were screwing each other over. I'm like, we're supposed to be friends. What are we doing? Like, this is not what I signed up for. Just want to have fun with my friends.
It seems like you have a tendency to realize when something isn't fun anymore and bail. Drifting professionally, social media.
Yeah.
I feel like you're ahead of your time on both of those decisions. I think a lot of people these days feel the same way about social media.
Yeah.
It's
got its perks, I'm sure.
Yeah. You'd feel a little less disconnected, but you probably feel a lot more left out.
Yeah. I was in a constant state of comparing myself to everybody when I was on it. And it made me feel super bummed out all the time. And I remember having to like take a step back. I always felt like I'm not good enough. Look at all these other artists that are doing more. These people are going all these places. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. And I was like, hey man, you're chasing a stadium music act around the world. Like, life is pretty good.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think it's this. And so,
yeah,
eject.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know about everybody else, but I associate with that heavily. I'm already pretty like self-critical, and it's hard to watch other people's highlight reel like all day, every day, and not want to compare myself. Or
it's impossible not to.
Do you feel like that was it? Are you feeling a lot more free?
Oh, absolutely. Without question. I feel like it took my life back, and I would even like go on adventures by myself and like,
no one fucking knows.
No one knows.
Which is kind of cool.
There's some crazy stories. They're just my stories now, like,
yeah.
And also I think to me that becomes way more interesting. The storytelling aspect is super interesting to me. I don't need to see it.
Yeah.
But let's have a conversation. You can tell me a story. That's more interesting to me.
I'm fucking with you on that one. Do you have any wild touring rock star lifestyle stories?
Probably not. Because it's not what people think it is.
Yeah, that's a grind.
It's I think Motley Crue in the 80s has left a mark on what people think touring is that has endured the test of time.
Yeah.
And it is wildly incorrect. I mean, it's a job. They're in partying, they're in groupies. There's nothing going on backstage. People are like, can you give me a backstage pass? I'm like, there's nothing going on back here.
I feel like they're eating a cheese plate.
It's a job. And at the end of the show, everyone's pretty quick to be like, going to bed.
Yeah.
because we got to get up and do it again tomorrow.
How do you keep your creativity satisfied shooting similar stuff in different locations?
Great question. I have no idea. I know that like the kind of the high, for lack of a better word, that comes along when I get something that makes me feel that way, that feels so special to me that I think probably is a driving force.
Yeah.
It's not that every night. I don't expect it to be that every night, but that's always the goal. If I can just get one, then I'm like, yes, then I feel like I've done a good job.
Yeah. I feel like that's pretty valid.
But I have good nights. I have bad nights. I have great nights. I have horrible nights.
Yeah, I can imagine it's pretty tough to get that. Like, I think you hold yourself to a pretty high standard. So I think it's
For sure.
I'm sure when you get a fucking perfect shot, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of the paradox of being hypercritical like that, is even something that I don't deem good is still plenty good. Like I'm just striving for something that's pretty unattainable, which is perfection.
Yeah. I think artists and people who are striving for hypercritical detail level of art and creativity, having social media is very difficult because it's so easy to compare and you're not seeing the flaws that someone else would see in their own work. And yeah, what a fucking cool life, man.
Yes, I totally agree. I make jokes all the time. I'm like, do not pinch me, because I don't want to wake up, because it makes no sense. None of it makes any sense. But it's also, none of it is lost on me. I'm thankful for it every day, even, when we're gone all the time and never get any time home. Like I rarely get to see my girlfriend, Ashley. Like there are parts of it that's really tough, and it's really easy to hyper focus on that stuff and just be like, oh man, woe is me. Everything sucks out here. It's like, nah, it's pretty unreal.
I'm not even talking about touring as a, photographer. Like you were a professional drifter, skater, fucking filmmaker. I didn't know you did fucking After Effects, graphic artist. Like what a fucking cool life. And not only that, like a incredible collection of amazing like memorabilia, and I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. I still wish you could see Ashley's place. It puts him on to shame.
I hope we can fucking drive soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
How do we make that happen?
I'm coming out here.
Okay.
I'm gonna bring my car out here. I'll give you plenty of heads up.
Okay.
Yeah. We gotta do some BMW tandems.
Yes. I'm in.
Yeah.
Sure.
That would make my fucking life.
Yeah. Done deal. We'll make it happen.
Can't wait.
We'll make it sappin'.
Oh shit.
How long have we been going? Is that the first pun I got off the whole dang time?
Yeah. They told me you might have some puns lined up.
Yeah.
I'm pretty punny myself.
All right.
Yeah. I didn't have any either.
Yeah.
I was trying.
We've been
trying to impress you. Yeah.
We've been in it.
We're talking about heavy shit.
Life.
Yeah.
Loss.
Yeah.
The stupidest thing you can do in a car ever. I stand by that.
That was the hardest line.
I'm not even sure. That might not even be my line. Someone else might have said that. Lance?
Someone else said it. You said, I have credit cards. They're maxed.
Yeah.
That lives rent free in my fucking head.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck yeah. This dude loves this shit.
It was all so reckless. Again, I wouldn't trade it for the world, but dang, I wish I could just like go back and give younger me just a little advice. But then we might not be sitting here talking and telling stories.
No. If you could go back and tell younger you something, not necessarily advice.
It's going to be okay.
Fuck yeah.
Short and sweet.
Yeah, pretty simple. I think I'd probably do the same. When you were competing and when you were like kind of at your like height of pushing in drifting and like this is like everything, were you able to take a step back and like appreciate and think about the journey and take it day by day? Were you thinking down the road? Were you full of anxiety of like, how am I going to make it to the next round? Like, how did you balance all that?
I definitely stopped and smelled the roses along the way. I do think there was a while where I got hyper focused, not in a good way.
Mm.
You know, like I remember being on the hill at Road Atlanta, maybe '07. My car was like shorting out, going into limp mode as I would come down the hill. I forget, there was like some wires were melted together. And I remember being so pissed that I like just straight up kicked my car. And then I remember kind of instantly being like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You're this mad at this? Like, what is going on? Ultimately, I feel like it all landed where it needed to land.
I respect that. I think it's hard to like take a step back and appreciate the ride.
That's what it is. It's a ride.
Yeah.
And it's wild. All of it's wild.
Yeah, it's a fucking wild ride.
Yeah.
Our producer, Laura, has a question. Yeah.
When did you decide you wanted to be like full freelance?
Photo?
Yeah.
Well, good question. Because, well, for 10 years I wasn't. As soon as I started doing this full time, I was on salary. So I didn't have to worry about it. But when COVID hit, COVID was the catalyst. I was hoping at the time that being freelance would give me a bit better of a life balance, because I didn't have any balance at my last gig either. It was go all the time. So I was hoping that it would be a little more healthy, and it was for a little while. But this year it's been a lot.
I saw your wall of like film photos in the living room. It's all like cool style, interesting street shots. Laura got me into shooting film recently and taking my camera to events and kind of just taking a step back and thinking about shots and not just taking something with my phone. Like, it's ruined my phone camera for me. Like, I just don't even take photos with my phone anymore.
Yeah.
You've been doing it a long time. I guess, what was the motivation to shoot film in a time when it was pretty much no one considering it?
There was something missing with digital for me always, and I could never quite put my finger on it. I couldn't figure out why. And when I started shooting film, I mean, I learned on film, but that almost doesn't count in a way, I guess. But when I started shooting film again, kind of as an adult, I realized that the piece that was missing was more the process and having to know. A lot of people will say like, oh no, I like that it slows me down, which is true. But I think I like the not knowing more and having to be like, did I get it? Do I know what I'm doing enough to walk away from whatever I just shot to know, yeah, I got it. We're good. Which you never know.
Yeah.
Which is just it's like an extra fun part.
Yeah, it puts a little danger in it.
I like that. Yes.
Dangerous photography.
Dangerous photography.
Which I'm noticing a trend in your life. But there's a lot of people in drifting who are now shooting film, and I think there is that parallel where it's like delayed gratification,
mm-hmm.
the danger of like, did I even get it?
Yeah.
But like, again.
And there's just some magic to it. Like that's, if I really get down to brass tacks, there's just a magic to it that there's a feeling to film that digital just doesn't have. And I'm on a bit of like a film hiatus because I'm tired of being broke. I've taken the stay broke, shoot film thing like real serious for a real long time. And
I saw the bucket of film canisters. I did the math on that.
I've been shooting 200 to 250 rolls a year since 2013. And the film industry as a whole, like everyone's just kind of nickel and diming here and there. even my lab that I sent everything to, like, they're like, all right, well, we're charging you $1 per roll now to not cut your negatives because I don't want them to cut them. I want to cut them. I'm like, all right, well, that $1 uptick now costs me an extra $200 to $250 a year. And then they're like, oh, we're raising development by $1 too. All right, well, now we're looking at $400 to $500 a year. And then the prices of film are going up. Kodak went up 40% this year.
Yeah.
And I'm like, at the volume that I'm shooting, I'm just hemorrhaging money. So I've kind of reverted back to shooting digital. And I've painstakingly, so Fuji had a film called Natura. It's a 1600 speed color film that was like my voice in photography. And they discontinued it in 2018. And I was gutted. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a painter and my favorite color is blue and y'all just took the color blue away. How the hell am I supposed to paint a sky, you know? So I've painstakingly taken film scans of that old Natura stuff next to my Fuji X100 digital stuff. And I've made a preset that is as close as I feel like I can possibly get it to that Natura. So that's another reason that I've kind of leaned back into shooting digital. But even still, all of that being said, the digital stuff just doesn't have the feel that the film stuff has. There's a magic to it, an organic something that maybe I'll never be able to grab a hold of.
Yeah. When you nail a film shot, it's just like,
It's a drug. It's a drug. When you get it, man, there's not much better.
yeah, I've never seen Laura call the film shop because they said it would be done at the end of the day, and it's 4:30. That's never happened. She makes waiting for my scan memes or waiting for my scans memes.
That's amazing. I just had to wait 65 days for scans for 2 rolls of panoramic 35 millimeter. And I think the last 10 days of it, I was like, am I going to have to drive to Kansas to get this stuff from these guys? It was very frustrating. So I get it.
Yeah. I think it's beautiful though. I didn't understand. I saw people walking around with film cameras and I was like, oh, you're just trying to be fucking cool. And then I got my first roll developed and I was like,
Oh no, this is fucking cool.
I was like, this is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys are cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like one of those things. It's like not everybody is going to be able to like feel that. Not everyone's going to be able to like tell the difference. But I think that's kind of one of the things with people in drifting. It's like you have this like kind of sensitivity to things. Like you're like, I get this whole feel. I get this whole like energy from drifting. Like it's not just like a car doing something stupid. It's like everything that comes with it. Yeah. I think that's why there's like overlap with, I mean, people in drifting are some of the fucking coolest people on the planet. Like, cause it's just people who can see the nuance, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it makes me happy to hear that people are not just shooting film, but just taking pictures, period. Like documentation is really important. Shit changes.
Yeah.
You know, times change. We lost Turner Field. All the photos from Turner Field, like those are all super special to all of us now because that was a time in all of our lives that it's gone. You know, losing friends, losing Tyler, losing my buddy Britt. Like then all of a sudden, all of these photographs of them become so much more. So as someone who carries a camera with me absolutely everywhere I go, documentation is super important. Whether it's film or whether it's digital, it doesn't matter, but I think it's important.
Yeah. And back them up.
Yeah, that too.
You never know. You never know what's going to be the keepsake for somebody in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't delete anything. It's a problem.
I mean, I don't know. I'm sure you've like gone, well, you don't have to go on your computer to go back in time. You can just look at the walls in here. But
That's true.
I just recently had to go through all like my old hard drives and stuff. And I was just like, I used to do media stuff. And I was just like, oh my God, like I forgot about this guy. And like, oh, that's when your hood came off. And it's just like, it feels so cool to be able to go back and like hand those little pieces of history to each person who's involved. So.
Of course. And it, you know, down the line, it also becomes like kind of a special way to reach out to someone and say, hey man, I'm thinking about you.
Yeah.
Because that rules, you know?
Yeah.
People don't do enough of that.
I agree. That needs to be more common.
Yeah. And film photos are a great way to do that.
Definitely. There's nothing better than like taking a good picture of your friends with film and being like, here, I paid money to take this picture.
Yeah. That's another part of it too.
Yeah. This cost me money and I'm like happy to hand it over. Like, I hope you enjoy this.
Yeah. It's it's a little extra value.
Yeah. I don't know if I have any more questions because you have more questions. You're just going to start being on this podcast.
What's it like being a photographer without social media?
It's great.
Like, where do you put your photos?
Being a photographer without social media is great.
Wow.
I have a website. I have like it's a blog. I'm always, old technologies to me are always cooler than new ones. I still think blogs are super rad.
Bring back blogs.
It's kind of a shame to me that social media pretty much killed blogs. So yeah, I post photos of my travels on my site.
Where do we find that?
andysapp.com. First name, last name.
Yeah.
Easy enough.
I'll link it in the description.
And sometimes I'm good about posting my travels and sometimes I'm not, but it don't matter.
I think anyone's happy to see your work.
Yeah, that's basically where it lives.
Bring back blogs.
Yeah, blogs are I still have my blog reader that I like open up, and there are a few like old like chopper motorcycle blogs that still post a couple photo guys, but yeah, it's ghost town in that world.
That was like the best. I don't know, getting posted on a blog, like going and looking at like drift event coverage of a blog and you being in it was always like, yeah, this picture's so sick. Like I remember the first time I got on Speed Hunters, I was like, this is the greatest day of my life. Like,
yes.
I've been reading Speed Hunters since I was like,
since its inception.
fucking got it. Yeah, exactly. Like there's a photo of me on this fucking website.
Yeah.
Like I made it. I'm here.
I've arrived.
Yeah. And then, now social media and stuff, but it's like social media feels very, I don't know. It has a shelf life.
The algorithm has ruined it to me.
I think so too.
And that's even with blogs. That's what I liked about them is you can have an RSS reader. You subscribe to what you want to read. And then when they post new stuff, it hits your reader. And it's like how social media should be in my eyes.
Yeah.
If you follow someone, they post something, you see it. I don't need deep learning to tell me what I want to see.
I agree. I've missed out on so much cool stuff, and people are posting about their life or whatever, and you don't see that, but then you see something that like a lot of other people liked, and you're just like, well,
yeah,
that's never been what I'm after.
Yeah, and then it becomes weird sometimes if you see someone in person and they're like, "You didn't see my post?"
Yeah,
no,
I didn't have a choice.
I didn't know you had a kid.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Some fucking server and wherever decided I didn't need to. Yeah, I would love to leave social media. I think it's consumed me for far too long.
It can do that. I always tell people, come on in. The water's warm. It's nice. There are pitfalls, though. I mean, it's a little. It can be a little disconnecting, but if that doesn't bother you, it doesn't bother me. I see the people that I want to see when I can see them, and that's good enough.
Yeah. I think it's the fucking best advice we've gotten on this podcast yet. Dude, Andy, you're a fucking absolute icon legend to me, and I think a lot of other people in the community. I mean, I know a lot of other people in the community. I mentioned to a couple people over this week that we were going to do a podcast, and they were like, fuck yes.
No, that's awfully sweet of you to say.
And
Sweet of anyone else to say too.
I appreciate all you've done for drifting and keeping drifting fun.
Yes.
Or fucking else.
God, I was so angry. I'm thankful for all of it. I'm thankful to have had any hand in any of it. Truly. I'm just a dude that loves drifting. So I'm happy I was able to help it in any way, because it sure as heck helped me.
Yeah, I think you're a pillar. I think you will always be a part of drifting, even if you're not able to do it at the moment.
I'll be around.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
We're fucking driving.
Yeah.
I'll bring my shit out here. I promise.
Yeah, let's do it.
That's a promise.
Let's do it. I'm in.
I can't wait.
I'm in.
Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for listening to the whole episode. If you like the guest, be sure to give them a follow on social media. The link's in the description. Send them a message. Tell them you appreciated the episode. They put a lot into these. If you want to support us, check out the links below. Follow us on social media. Hit the subscribe on YouTube, Spotify. You can check out goodestco.com for the latest merch drops. Hit up the Patreon. See what we got cooking on there. We appreciate you guys.